Let's move now to public safety. Though it's not the #1 issue in the polls, as it is many years when there's a race for mayor, it's still the top concern for many New Yorkers. So let's break down what each of these candidates are hoping to do if they end up leading the city. Democrat Zohran Mamdani certainly has some different views of public safety and policing. He would build out a quote-unquote Department of Community Safety with an emphasis on round-the-clock social workers, outreach workers, and greeters, particularly in and around the subway system. He's been taken to task for past comments about defunding the police. Mamdani has said he would not defund the police, but also that he would not hire more NYPD officers, keeping the current force level at its approximate level of 33,500 officers, even though there is room in the budget to hire more, 35,000 officers. He may, however, keep NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who he's praised for cleaning house at the department. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo says he will hire 5,000 new police officers. He also says he will lean into involuntary commitments, clearing subway stations of mentally ill homeless people every day in the evening. Cuomo also says he will lean into more technological innovations to improve policing. Mayor Eric Adams is often quick to point out that a lot of what Cuomo is proposing, he's already doing, and in fact, major crime statistics are falling. Adams also was able to get a handle on the illegal cannabis shops, which exploded around the city and shut down most of them. But Adams, a former police captain himself, has put questionable leadership in charge of the NYPD with numerous scandals, investigations, and lawsuits of top people and himself. Republican Curtis Sliwa brags he campaigns in the subways 2 hours each day, much more than any other candidate. He says he would hire 7,000 new NYPD officers and empower specialized units of officers to get more aggressive with those committing crimes. And he says he'd bring back NYPD's official homeless outreach unit, although Mayor Adams does already use officers to do a lot of homeless outreach currently. Jim Walden says he would take New York back to quote-unquote broken windows policing with a renewed focus on minor offenses like fare evasion. He'd also like to set up special courts to more quickly handle repeat offenders and do local bail reform to better get a handle on repeat offenders. The veteran litigator says on his website that if Albany doesn't like this, they can take him to court. Joining me now to break it all down, one of the best police reporters in the city, our very own Nicole Johnson. Nicole, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Henry.
So let's talk about the state of where policing and crime is right now, because point of order, major crime is down, but there's a feeling of unease out there, I think would be fair to say. So where is crime? How are people feeling on the streets?
All right, so we're looking at 5%, a little more than 5% down in all across the board in major crime, but perception is still very important. And what the mayor has not been able to do is to ease the fears of all New Yorkers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's even a task that could be accomplished, all New Yorkers. But even the majority of the city, I'm in the subway all the time. Mm-hmm. We're working cases. There's random crime still happening. People are being assaulted within the system, even random attacks on the street. So perception is not meeting the numbers, if you will.
Yeah, and so let's talk about perception, because Mr. Mamdani, who wants to really do some very different things around policing and public safety, argues you can get after that perception by tackling the homelessness crisis, tackling the mental health crisis, but he is saying no more of this billions in overtime thing, no more in, necessarily a cop in every place, maybe an outreach worker in every place. How do you think that will play? Do you think New Yorkers are ready for something that different?
Well, I believe removing any talk of removing officers out of the subway system is a pretty bad idea. We have thousands flooding the system now. And to say we're going to remove and rely on outreach workers or community groups, I got to see that play out in order to know if it could be effective or not. Right now, the more officers in the system, what we're getting, people like to see a police officer on the platform. They complain if they're not on the platform and if they're up on the mezzanine level, if they're not on the train. So, when you hear a plan to remove officers, it's not really sitting well with the average New Yorker.
And progressives would argue, well, we've done so much for so long with cops, let's try something else. If we get a Mayor Mamdani, certainly we're going to see in real time what happens, how people feel. But let's focus back on something I mentioned in passing, the police overtime issue. Everyone points to this as a problem, with the exception of the mayor, who's taken to saying, don't talk to me about overtime, we're bringing crime down. Is this overtime situation a problem? Do we need more cops right now?
Well, we can't talk about the overtime issue without the trust issue. They have to rebuild trust within that NYPD out the gate. And then when you look at that overtime, there's been a scandal about the abuse of overtime. We've seen it play out in headlines recently where folks are padding their timesheet. So you have a black eye there. I don't understand how you can police, and I understand what the mayor is saying. You know, he's bringing down crime. They're putting officers where we need them to be. How can we do it without increasing overtime? I don't think you can, especially with less officers within the police department. But there is that trust issue. So the mayor can cry, hey, we need, I have to do overtime. We need more officers on overtime. But we also have that trust issue. Are resources being used properly? Are the officers rotating in and out of their shifts properly? These are questions that people want to know. But you can't have a safer city, I don't believe, in my experience being out there, without officers walking that beat, without officers in the street, without officers out there. Whether or not it's overtime, I definitely feel we may need more officers to fill the city and to make people feel safe. So I'm not sure how that overtime piece is going to play, but I know that trust needs to be restored.
Yeah, even other progressives during the primary phase, for Brad Lander, who became very closely aligned with Mamdani, was saying, we need to increase the number of officers. Mamdani is alone in both in this general election race and in his primary race, and saying we don't necessarily need more officers. So it's a differentiation. Whether or not people are supportive or not, I think could be one of the key different issues in this race.